Okay, thank you all for coming to our informational meeting. The board met last Thursday night, as most of you know, and has come to a conclusion to what we want to do. We're holding this meeting tonight to inform everybody of our decision and update them on the pricing. So that is the topic for tonight, and that's where we'll be at. And Zell, why don't you give a rundown of the construction and the pricing?
I will. I'm just going to share screen. Hope everyone can see that. So this is a document that we looked at last week, kind of reviewing where we are with the project. As Bruce mentioned, we've kind of been going through a value engineering study to make sure we can accomplish what we need over at the facility for the budget that we have available. So we asked our engineer and the builder that we are working with to look at a few options for how to get the price down. And so this document sort of summarizes that. And there are two different columns: keeping the building and removing the building. The discussion was that we can keep the building in the project, or we can do all the site work for a future building to be added to the site, but just at this point not include the building. We had looked at doing a wood building, but now with pricing going down to metal, we're back at doing a metal structure. So I can just kind of go down through these. The voluntary deduct, that was from the builder. Through the exercise, they looked at it, and that would be coming over their overhead and profit. And that would apply to both options. Eliminate the transformer pad. Sounds like the contractor had carried a transformer pad. It's not really needed. And so we can eliminate that from both options because the transformer will be inside the building and doesn't need a pad. Reduce the utility allowance. This is just an allowance that was sort of carried for utilities, but since we already have electrical there, they felt this was high and this can be reduced. And then obviously an allowance is only what is necessary to be spent. Reduce the QA/QC testing. This was reduced. It was originally 7,000 and it was reduced down to 5,000, reduced down to 5,000 by removing 2,000. And this is things like concrete testing. The engineer didn't feel that one was necessary. And then eliminate disposal. That is because they would be using our facility. I guess the perk of having a transfer station is we can offer for the materials to be disposed of that way. Eliminate winter heat. That is because the project is no longer in the winter, it is in the spring, summer. So additional heating and other expenses won't be there. The Ready Rock retaining wall. This is looking at a different way to construct one of the site walls. And this would apply to both options. Engineer recommended this one. The deduct for paving, that's removing some of the paving. And as we talked about at our last meeting, we can obviously add that back in or phase it, different options there. The next line item includes precast planks, which is a change to how the decking is going to be built. And that number only applies to if the building would be there because the decking is part of the building. And also kind of in that same number is removing the overhead and the pass doors. So $50,000 for those doors would also be included in there. We did discuss the, should we add the doors back in? Do we plan to add them back in, and budget for it down the line? So obviously those doors can always be added back either in the first phase or later. And then the next line item is eliminate the building altogether for the $215,000. And by doing that, we would create a watertight control room around the electrical equipment. So, functionally, you need a little cover there. So it's not, so it still functions. It just doesn't have the whole building enclosure. And so looking at those, it gets our costs down. And then the compactor hopper install, that we needed a different type of compactor or hopper depending if there's a building or not. So that's why it's sort of the 68,000 versus the 118,000. And then the next line is the total. So we're at 1.15 or 1.09. And then this is listing what our total funding is, and in the red. And so this is all the funding that we have for the project, which is the PERC money plus the $400,000 bond plus our entire reserve for the facility. And so with those two options, what we would have remaining in our reserve account would be about the 93,000 versus the 152. And then we added in, we will have some engineering costs to have our engineer oversee the project. So that had originally been estimated at 38,500. So we're putting that back in. And so essentially, when you get to the bottom line, we can do the project and still have money in our contingency. And if we keep the building, we'll have about 55,000. And if we get rid of the building, we'll have about 114,000. So those were sort of the two options that were presented to us. And then, like Bruce said, we discussed those two options.
Okay, so during the Thursday night meeting, we plan on keeping the building is pretty much the consensus, because it is a doable thing we can afford to do. If that contingency is not tapped into, something don't go wrong and it doesn't eat it up, we intend to put the doors back in on that phase. If for some reason that's not feasible, as Giselle said, that will be phase 2. We will put doors in later on. One little thing that was a little off on our presentation was the deduction of the pavement. We're not taking pavement away. It originally was spec'd to be a 5-inch layer of pavement at that area, and we're scaling it back to 4. A lot of your highways are nothing but 4 inches. There's usually a 2-inch binder with a 2-inch finish coat. So that's where that $10,000 figure came from. It's not doing away with it, it's just reducing it. Although it does say removing pavement. But
yeah, that was my note. Sorry.
Yeah, but the way Chris described it the other night was it wasn't removing it, it was just actually reducing it. So, yes, Lynn. You're muted, Lynn.
Sorry.
No problem.
I had a question about the $400,000 was done according to your interlocal agreement without any participation of any of the towns. There's no approval from the townspeople. There's nothing. And there's no, I'm reading this thing and it is literally, you can do this every year if you want to, the way I'm reading this. The corporation shall have the power through its joint board to incur indebtedness for any purpose under section 1304B of Title 38 of the Maine Revised Statutes as amended, in principal amount not to exceed at any time the $400,000. $400,000 is apparently what you guys put in. This interlocal that I'm reading is from 2006, and you're still working on it's been in there since that time. And so it says nothing about that's good for 10 years. So what we have now that's in budget, you can next year say, well, we're going to spend another $200,000 on the doors. And then the next year say, I'm going to spend another $200,000 and keep doing that until we're indebted for 2 million or 100, 105, 100.5, 100.7, whatever it is at that time. I am really not happy with any of this. I got to be honest. It's not okay.
Hey, Lynn,
do you think it's okay?
I got a correction on it. That is not accurate. It is our understanding that we are able to borrow with a ceiling of $400,000. It does not give us an annual $400,000. We can
It
never
doesn't
be
say-
indebted for any more than that. In order to take another loan next year, we would have to pay this loan down to a certain point, and we would only be able to borrow what is left up to 400,000. We can never go over 400,000 at any given time. So if we need more money next year, say we need 200,000 next year, and we only paid 100,000 of that loan back, we can't do it. It's that simple. As far as the taxpayers, this interlocal agreement in 2006 went before all three towns. The taxpayers felt comfortable with what they were granting us for power. And I shouldn't say it's us, because this board today was not part of this. This was a whole different board.
How does, let me ask you another question. How does that get changed by the town? Is it by warrant? Is that how it gets changed like
Well-
anything else? Is it voted on by the towns to change it?
It is, but keep in mind that in the interlocal agreement that the taxpayers approved back in 2006,
Yes.
all three towns has to be in agreement before any change is made to that interlocal agreement. So I'll
Well-
say they want it changed, but Thomaston and South Thomaston says, no, we're not going to change it. Therefore, it's a dead issue. It would
Does
never pass.
anyone know how much this is adding to our taxes? Does anyone know that?
We do. As we stated many times before in previous meetings, we had this all calculated out last year when and by the way, I'll reiterate again, we submitted a zero increase budget. With this loan already taken in effect, with everything figured out, what has hurt us is COVID and the way the world has reacted in the last 2 years. That drove this construction project up. But with that said, we still have the money that we had previous to that, and it's all funded. So it has zero impact on your budget at this point. The increase that you are seeing that was so steep when we presented the 2022 is fuel cost, electrical cost. We had to pay our personnel more money. That is all stuff that drove the $50 or $60 or $70,000 increase to your budget this year. And it will continue to do so because we can't do anything about that. Fuel is skyrocketing. We can't control that. Trucking is going up due to fuel. Electricity is going up. The thing uses X amount of wattage and voltage a year, and we can't control that. We do a level best to do what we can to control what we can. And again, this budget for this building, when we had it figured out, was going to cost you zero increase. And it still pretty much is a zero increase because the money that we are spending today on this project, we have already and was budgeted 2 years ago.
I remember the budget 2 years ago and being told that essentially it was a zero increase. And that's why everybody thought that it was a great idea, was because it was, figured out but that's changed. And I do worry that, our school budget goes up every year, our everything goes up. And yes, you can't help some of these things, but where does it ever end? And I guess I share the same frustration that you guys do. I'm very sure that you're all taxpayers as well as I am. Is there no, I listened to, let's see, I listened to an alternative method in Harpswell, the way that they did it. Is that like just out the door? Why? Tell me what the problem is with that. Talk to me.
Skip, you visited that facility and you've toured it and see how it operates. I think maybe you're probably one more qualified to answer her question on that one.
Okay, it's nothing like our facility. It's a pedestrian only facility.
But wasn't it going to be upgraded to a commercial and pedestrian facility? Isn't that what was?
No. And they had roughly about the same amount of money that it was going to cost to complete their project, around $1 million. And they only did half of it for less than 500, is 4 something, I think. They have no holding tanks for their runoff that runs into a kind of like a depression in the ground. It's a completely different thing. And like I said, pedestrian only. Pedestrians, regular people can't even drive up to it. They have to lug everything over. And the building is just covering the hoppers. It's just a little, it's like a shed kind of over the hoppers. The other half of their project was a building that's beside it, that's mostly houses their equipment and things like that.
Walter, Bruce has his hand up.
Yeah, I was waiting for that to be finished up. I saw it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Walt.
Sorry, I'm late. Just got off the road from Boston. I want to go back to the taxpayer question. First of all, the PERC funds, $698,000 out of those, had no impact one way or the other on the taxpayers.
Correct.
So we borrowed $400,000. And last year, the debt service of about $25,000 was in the assessment that we gave to the towns. That assessment was 0 increase over the prior year. The ongoing debt service for that $400,000 loan, if everything stays the way it is on this exhibit, will be the only impact of this project on the taxpayers. And the question is whether that will be any impact at all. Or the combination of things related to the operation of the facility, the new hauling contract, fuel increases, I would suggest will dwarf that debt service. So, the raising of the impact of the taxpayers of this project is sort of a red herring, unless the board were to go to the towns and say, fund us for another $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 for this project because something goes wrong. So, but as it stands now, and what we're going to vote on Thursday is the project economics as they stand here today, and the only impact on the taxpayers, and actually the only impact on the assessment, will be the debt service.
And the debt service is going to, do we know what the impact of the debt service is, or do you think that you're going to be able to keep it as what the debt service has been throughout?
Yeah, it's a loan. It's a 20-year loan from the
I understand.
from the First National Bank, and the amortization or the payback of that loan is fixed in stone. And I don't have the schedule with me right now, but if you want it, I'll send it to you. And it shows you year by year the principal and the interest payment. And like I say, the last year's 25,000, roughly 25,000 on the first year of the loan. That's the largest amount of debt service that's going to be paid on that loan. It will always decline a little bit as we pay back principal.
Right. The usual debt service that you have for the site is what, around 100,000? Was that what I understood? Is that a typical year for debt service for the solid waste?
No, the debt service that is the debt service on the 400,000.
No, I'm sorry. I'm using the wrong terminology. When they do a budget for you guys, is it just debt service? Is that your only? I know I'm using the wrong terminology. Well, let me think about it. I'll try and put my brain in gear and see if I can come up with the right words to make sense. How's that?
The budget that we submit to the 3 towns is detailed line item by line item. All of our income, which is a forecast, although in some cases it's locked and loaded. And then all of our expenses by line item. And those are submitted to the select boards and to the budget committees. We get subjected to an inquisition of one extent or another by the select boards and the budget committees. I certainly do every year with my colleagues. It's been a walk in the park the last 3 years because the year over year change to the assessment has been 0. That will not happen when we put the 12-month budget in front of everybody by May 1st. But that increase will have little or nothing to do with this project. The only impact from this project on the budget that we're going to submit is the $25,000 worth of debt service, roughly speaking.
And I think what I'm trying to express is the amount of expenses that you have every year that are not covered by your income. When you submit it to the for budgeting purposes, I was wondering how much is not covered. What kind of expenses are typically owed every year by the taxpayers for the operation of the facility?
Well, the original budget for the calendar year 2022 resulted in, oh man, I don't have it with me. Does anybody have Owl's Head assessment? Andy? Is that what you're asking for, Lynn?
Yeah, I think that it is, but you know what, it's not, I don't want to hold up the meeting for this. So I can get it later. It's not critical and it's not part of the vote. So please, I thank you thank you very much for your completeness and your answers.
Lynn, going down the road in the future, there's some of these questions that are burning questions in your mind. Again, we have these meetings once a month. You're welcome to come anytime and ask the questions. We'll get the answers for you. So if you don't get what you need tonight, again, please feel free to hop in on one of the meetings.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I can't see the whole board, Zell. So is there anybody out there got a hand up or?
I don't see any.
Scott does.
Okay, Scott does. See him. Yes, Scott.
Hey, can I ask Walter a question, Bruce?
Certainly.
Is that okay? Hey, Walter.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, if I misspeak on this, just let me know. So basically, there's no tax increase from this year on this project. But you could actually say that the money that you spent above the PERT funds and the loan, we've already paid taxes on it in previous years because it's been in capital improvement and surplus and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
So I guess the question, and I think the theory is, and maybe I've gone a roundabout way to ask it, is the total project really has to include, even though it's not going to affect the taxes this year, it did affect the years in the.
Good. Am I lost or is Scott lost?
We lost Scott for some reason on his audio. He doesn't show to be mute, but we're not getting him.
Bruce?
I got you now. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, are you there, Walt?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, did you hear me?
Let me make sure that I understood the question.
Yep.
I think your question is funds that we have paid that are as part of this project that we paid in the past, were those part of our assessment and therefore did they impact the tax rate?
Yes, that's the question.
All right. So to the extent, and the only expenditure that I'm aware of, and I'll double check this and get you the answer tomorrow, and I'll send an email to everybody that's on this.
Okay.
The amount that we paid for the scale. Because we paid for that out of either our contingency or our independent capital improvement fund. And
Right.
in that case, the assessment, the assessments every year, a portion of the assessments fund the capital improvement fund and fund the contingency fund. And that's the one expenditure that I'm aware of off the top of my head that can be traced back to coming from the assessment in that roundabout way of flowing through to the capital improvement fund.
So where did,
Oh, by the way, we did that last year,
yep,
and last year we had a 0 increase in the assessment year over year. So the impact on the tax bills.
right, but I guess what I've been aiming for, even with the paper I sent you folks, was I add the numbers up I used the S.J. Wood estimate you had, I used the Blaine Casey, the 98,000 and on, right? And I came up with a lot more than the $1,098,000. I'm just curious on how much of that other money, I'm not looking to be a pain, but I'm just wondering where that other 300,000 or so came out of and when was it budgeted? I saw in the minutes that there was a $48,000. It was proposed to take 80 and you put it down to 48 to remove it from one fund to the other. I assume that might have been the scale you were talking about.
Correct.
Okay, but I also saw those another minutes and then I didn't have a chance to look back on one Al's head. But do you agree? If you disagree, tell me, that's fine. There's about 250, 300,000 roughly that I can come up with that must have come out of our operating budget, whatever, that should be part of this total project. I know you don't know any more on it because you took it out of previous budgets, okay? So it's not going to affect our taxes. But I'd like to see it put in as a total project cost. You see what I mean? Because I went through the informational stuff, and the S.J. Wood thing, there was a ton of stuff left out, like all the engineering fees of $98,500, but over on the Blaine Casey, there was $38,500, and there was no installation. So the point is, and I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, it's very hard to figure out how much we've spent on this project and how much we have left to spend on it. You see what I'm saying? That's all I'm really asking.
Yeah, that's a fair question. And I
Yep.
saw your email on my phone as I was driving. So
And you can do it.
digest it.
I won't hold you up no more. If you want to get back to me and tell me those numbers are on, I appreciate it. I took everything on there off that informational meeting. And I'm reading, see if I lose you, I'll excuse it, I'm not. But on this proposed project cost, Zell wrote in there somewhere there, I'm not picking on you, Zell, but I can't see it, even my glasses on. Somewhere it said this is all the money we have in our reserves, right? I'm kind of interested in what the whole reserve was. I'm just looking at it because to tell you the truth is, and Skip will relate to this, is I've been a proponent of hot top in that lower parking lot. Okay? And I just can't see it. It's really, if we're talking a $1.4 million project that we're going to spend and have spent, another 100,000 really probably isn't going to kill us all. You know what I'm saying? Because we've lived through, and I know everyone can think I'm whining or whatever. We've lived through the last 10 years of that project not being done. That was supposed to be hot topped out back of the compactors 10 years ago. It was supposed to have been hot topped out front. We've all lived with that. Everyone's worked with it. It's too bad not to do the complete project. There's some ideas. I got some, not for this night, but there's some ideas where you could probably make your money back. we're all saying that dump stickers are pretty cheap. Go up to $40 a dump sticker. There's 20 grand, 80,000, your project's done. You see what I mean? There's all kinds of options. And the thing that's confused me a little bit, Walt, is Jeff made the comment that no one paid attention to the solid waste budget. I'm hearing Lynn does, but why don't we just put that in this budget and get it all over it? Sticker shock 1 year, we're all done. We've changed the fiscal year, we're all on track, and finish this project. I mean, I'm not saying I'm 100% like the location and all that, but if the project's going to be done, let's close the doors in and let's do all the hot topping. You know, I mean, I think you're too close to leave it wide open. You know, I think if you can get the doors in it and do that other parking lot, because that other parking lot is terrible down there. I mean, you're going to spend as much on diesel fuel running the tractor around it and buying reclaim in a year than you would probably make the payment to pave it. Because I don't see the prices coming down. Bruce can probably contest to it. I don't see prices coming down for fuel, pavement, construction for 3 or 4 years.
I concur. I really do.
So I mean, and this is, I know there's been some stuff out there, but I really think that if you could really come up with the money to finish the project somehow. But I would like to know, Walter, how much we've spent so far, if you could possibly do that.
Yeah, well, actually, Heather will do that.
Okay, that's all right.
She knows every bill that we've gotten and paid and whatever. So I'll get together with her in the next day or so.
Right.
Just want to clarify something, because you brought up reserves.
Yep.
We have 2 reserves.
Yep.
We have 3. One's our operating reserve, and that's our bank account. That's cash, our operating cash.
Yep.
We have a capital equipment reserve, a capital improvement reserve.
Yep.
And we have a contingency reserve.
Right.
The combination of the 2 are the 1245222.
Okay.
And so.
Right, but my point is, you tell me if I'm wrong real quick with figures, okay? Because we use the same bookkeeping, the QuickBooks that you guys do. And I was looking through some of your stuff. It almost, I mean, everything matches up, so actually I can decipher it a little bit. If we got the funding of PERC is 698, which we're all on board with that, right?
Right.
The
That went
$400,000.
into the capital equipment reserve, as did the $400,000 loan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, perfect, thank you. And the $400,000 loan, that's $1,098,000. And so my point is, we're at $1,098,000. Right now with Blaine Casey, we're at what, $1,083,000? Does that sound?
Yep.
Okay. So right there, there's $15,000 left. So everything above, and maybe I'm looking at this backwards, everything above that $1,098,000 came out of a capital improvement operating or something. Would that be a correct assessment?
The capital improvement reserve had been funded, over the years.
Right.
Never to my knowledge with anything like 6 figures.
Right.
Just to backtrack for a minute. So the 698 and the 400.
Yep.
So $1,098,000.
Yep.
We were dancing in the end zone when we got the wood bid of $970,000. And the fact of the matter is that when we got the wood bid, all we had was the 698. So we got the wood bid, and that caused us to go out and borrow the 400,000. And when we did that, we had $1,098,000, and we thought we were in Fat City because we had the construction paid for.
Yeah. Listen, I'm just moving around. Sorry about that. Okay, so I was looking for a paper and I can't find it, of course. All right, because the figures I took off, I don't want to hold you up because this is probably beating a dead horse. the SJ Wood figures that we were just talking about, okay?
Yep,
Lost him again.
970,000.
We've, for some reason, lost Scott again. He actually locked right up this time.
Oh, all right.
Bruce? Oh, I lost you.
Yeah, he's back.
Sorry, Walter.
No problem.
All right, so the question is, I'm looking at the proposed cost for the SJ Wood, right? Which was this, you won't be able to read it, but it's that. It says the 970, then it has the compactors, the scale and all that, comes out $1,073,000. Right? And right below it says total funding available is $1,098,000. So at that point, the PERC funds and the loan are in it, according to this. Now, I added the 98.5 to that, and that still puts us over the, you see what I mean? So I guess the question I'm just saying is, I just like to know how much we took out of any reserve account or anything above the funds from PERC and the loan, if that makes it more simple.
We owe that to ourselves, among other things, so that we don't, so we don't make any mistakes.
Well, I mean, I think it's just, it's, you know, I don't know. I guess that's all I'm really deep down asking, is so that I understand that we did pay for this through our taxes at one point. It was an assessment on all our taxes. Now we're spending this. I think it would lighten up a lot as where the money came from. And, you know, and I think there'll still be made more money out there we need to spend. You know, but if you could do that for me, Walter, that'd be appreciative.
Okay. Heather will do it for me. Hey, Bruce, can I answer Lynn's question?
Yeah, I guess. Go ahead.
Okay, so Lynn, are you still there? I've minimized the
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I am.
so the budget that we sent to the towns for calendar year 2021, we asked the towns for $668,711, of which $173,864 was going to come from Owl's Head. That was an increase to Owl's Head. I assume you're most interested in Owl's Head. Over last year's 145,416. Now, what we've subsequently done is do a 6-month budget that lightens the load a little bit. But the fact is that to some extent, we're kicking a can or two down the road. So stay tuned for the 12-month budget that we're going to start reviewing on this Thursday.
Okay, so
But
the figure.
But again, can I just,
Yes.
so the budget that we presented to the 3 towns, that big increase, the only item that was in that budget that can be directly traced to this project was the $25,000 of debt service on the loan. And that's a repeat from last year.
Thank you. That was what I was asking. I was trying to figure out what your yearly expenses are normally and what we're looking at with the you know, the $400,000 that we owe. I mean, we have to pay it. It's not something that you don't get to pay back. So it's, you know, it's going to show up somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's going to be that debt service, $20 odd thousand a year, you know, this year a little bit less than last year. Last year, our total facility expense was $631.72. What we're looking at for this year was total facility expense of $701.61. Of those 2, they have the one thing they have in common is the $25,000 of debt service. So the $70,000, the increase, year over year increase from last year to this year the debt service had absolutely no impact on that increase because the debt service was less year over year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That is just what I was asking.
But go to your budget committee meetings when they review this budget and because you'll see the line items and you can inquisition your budget committee 9 ways from Sunday.
Okay. Is there anybody else that has a comment or question? Like I said, I can't see the full screen. In fact, I've lost Al, so.
I'm here. I don't see any hands up.
So is everybody contented with the answers they have so far? Okay. I guess there's nothing less to discuss. Should we call this meeting adjourned? Oh, look, we got full screen.
If there are no more questions, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Everybody knows the drill. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.